everyone, and welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Wednesday, September 7th, 2022, and this is episode 230. My name is Carol. I am known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live a little ways east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada, where we are thankfully experiencing somewhat cooler temperatures than we had been. It is still really sunny out today, but it's not nearly so hot as it's been. So I am back here recording in my craft room this afternoon. Having said that, I've gotten going later than I planned, and it's a little warmer than I expected. So I do have a fan pointed at me. I'm hoping that noise doesn't pick up on the microphone. And I've been stumbling and bumbling over this opening so much, I decided to pour myself an adult beverage. I'm enjoying a White Claw hard seltzer. I was going to say in the mango colorway. I must be a knitter, but no, the mango flavor. So cheers to you. I don't know if this is going to prove to be a good thing or bad thing, but I invite you to find a beverage of your own, whether it be hot or cold, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and come and sit with me for a half hour or so and we can talk some knitting. It is back to school time here in BC for students and teachers, so if that's you, I hope your school year is off to a good start. I don't often mention things going on in the news on this podcast, but I do feel the need to mention a couple of things this week. One is the terrible natural disasters that have been happening everywhere, it seems. In particular, right now, the wildfires that are taking place in California and Oregon and closer to home here. We've had smoky skies off and on this past week. If you are experiencing the threat of fire or flooding or whatever, I wish you the best and hope that you remain safe. And then I just feel like I can't not mention, I need to mention also the horrific killings that have taken place this past weekend in Saskatchewan. And I was relieved to read just before I started recording that the suspect who had been eluding police has now been arrested. And so a lot of people can sleep a little bit easier tonight. But unfortunately, the nightmare is just beginning for the family and friends of the many victims. So I just want to say that my heart goes out to all of you. Sometimes it can be hard to sit down and record when you're thinking about things that are going on in the world, but also sometimes things a little bit closer to home and closer to your heart. That's the case this week. But I do think that we all need sometimes a bit of a distraction to kind of get us through those times in our lives. And so I'm hoping that this little episode can maybe take you out of your world for a short time and make you feel a little bit better. And hopefully it'll do the same for me. One thing that always makes me happy is getting to give away some prizes. And I'm going to do that right now. So for those of you who are new, first of all, welcome. Welcome to my channel. Second of all, I am hosting a year-long make-along in the A Stitch in Time podcast Ravelry group this year. It is called the Year of the Stash, and you are welcome to join in anytime. There is a general Year of the Stash chatter thread, and there's also a personal sock yarn club, which is taking place every month. So just come on by the Ravelry group, read the first post in each of the pertinent threads, and I'd love to see you there. All right, so first up is the winner of the Year of the Stash chatter thread for August. I put numbers 1714 to 1802 in the random number generator, and it chose post 1752, and that is ROC Knit, also known as Pam from New York. So congratulations, Pam, and thank you for taking part in the Year of the Stash. You have won this project bag made by yours truly. I thought that was a nice, cool, summery looking scene. And I've included also this cute little sheep progress keeper. So please send me a private message on Ravelry, including your mailing information, including your phone number, please. I need it for customs, and I will get that off to you as soon as I can. Next up is the winner of the July Personal Sock Yarn Club chatter thread. I drew from posts 3 to 52, and random number generator chose Lucky 13. That is LMECOLL. Also known as Linda from Pennsylvania. So congratulations, Linda. You have won this All You Knit Is Love shopping bag. And I'm also including this set of stitch markers and progress keeper. I thought that looked very fall-like considering we are now in September. So also please send me your mailing information on Ravelry, and I will get that in the mail as soon as I can. And finally, the finished projects winner for the July Personal Sock Yarn Club. I drew from posts 2 to 25, and random number generator chose post 22, who is Wee Sheep, also known as Julia, who is also from Pennsylvania. So congratulations, Julia. You have won up to $25 US in patterns that are giftable on Ravelry. So send me a private message and let me know which patterns you would like, and I will get those into your inbox right away. So thanks to all of you who are and have been participating in the Year of the Stash. Things have died down a little bit over the summer, but I'm hopeful that now that it's fall, for this side of the world anyway, that more of us will have time for knitting and crafting and doing all those fun hobbies, and hopefully things will pick up a little bit more come this month. And of course, congratulations to all the winners. All right, speaking of the Year of the Stash, the first project that I'm going to share with you are my September socks for the Personal Sock Yarn Club. I am knitting them out of this yarn, which is a little bit of a mess. It is from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. It is the Bounce Base, and this is the Apple Turnovers colorway. It is a 4-stripe colorway, and it was part of the Encore Yarn and Fiber Club from last September. And this was a repeat of the Just Desserts Club. So this is what it looks like in the skein. And here's how it looks like knit up. So I don't have the paper that came with the club shipment handy, but my guess or recollection is the brown represents the pastry from the apple turnovers, and that the red, yellow, and green represents colors of different apples. At least that's how I look at it. So I actually have both socks on the go, and the other sock is also about this far along. So not too bad for the first week of September, and I do have some upcoming car time in about a week's time, so I should get quite a bit more knit on them by then. Another project, I cast those on September 2nd, and another, well, no, actually a project I was going to cast on September, sorry, I just messed all that up. I cast those on September 1st. Another project I expected to cast on September 1st, but was able to cast on a day earlier because the clue for it came out a day early, is the Mountain Musings Mystery Knit Along by Lisa K. Ross of Paper Daisy Creations. I've talked quite a bit about this the last couple of episodes. It is a mystery shawl knit along, and I based my colorway choice on a scene from the mountains that we have behind our home. And I showed those colors to you last week. I'll show you once again. It was a set for this mystery knit along by Sweet Paprika Designs. So there's my colorway choice. And I'll just pop another picture in here of the mountain scene so you can see why I was inspired to order these colors. And because this is a mystery knit along, I'm going to give you warning right now that I am going to hold up my completed clue 1. So if you do not want to see it, look away, and I'll just hold this up for about 5 seconds. So count to 5 and you'll be able to come back and look safely. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's gone. So hopefully the rest of you got a good look. An interesting start to the knit along. I'm very excited about how my colors are looking, and I can't wait until Clue 2 comes out tomorrow. The yarn is a beautiful wool and silk blend, and cashmere. Yeah, 75% superwash merino, 15% cashmere, and 10% silk. And what you see on the screen, or what I see on the screen, is a very good representation of the color. It's beautiful purpley blue for the main color. So I can't wait to carry on with this. I kind of regret going full on when I first got the clues because clue 1 was over before I knew it. So I think I'm going to try and savor clue 2 a little bit more, just to truly appreciate the beautiful yarn and the interesting pattern. So I have another box of goodness here. I'm just going to move one box of goodness down here out of my way. After I completed the clue 1, I was a little bit bored just working on plain stockinette socks. I was trying to think of what project I could work on, and I was inspired to pick up my Dogwood Blossoms, which is a pattern by Karen Dimmler Lawrence of Knit Picks. And I am doing the cardigan, but in this colorway. This colorway is no longer available on the Knit Picks website, but when I ordered this yarn, I went on Ravelry. I found someone's project that listed all of the yarns you needed, and I ordered all the colors. And I ordered the current pattern and thought, I'll just be able to substitute the colors. Well, that was a joke because there was no way I could have done it. Reverse engineered it by looking at pictures and such. So I wrote to Knit Picks, and lo and behold, they not only gave me the colors used in every row, they sent me the original pattern. So I have all the original charts and all of the information about which colors are used in which row, and I'm not having to reverse engineer anything. So I had started this, I think it was last spring, as in spring of 2021. And it's a shame, but I left it. So I'm just gonna put some patterns away, or I can put things where they belong. It's a shame I left it so long. It's been, all the yarn has been sitting, so things are a bit of a mess here. The yarns have been sitting in my box here. And I've just been pulling from them as I need them and putting them back where they came from with their label so that I can keep them all separate. And the pattern has you start off with the sleeves, and I've been knitting them concurrently. So I work on a few rows on one and then I go and do a few rows on the other. Because my row gauge is a little bit less than what's called for, I cast on the color work, and then I picked up and knit the ribbing down a little ways, and I will add to the ribbing as necessary for both the sleeves and the body to make sure it's the right length. But anyway, I've got this much done on both sleeves, and I could not be happier with it. I have enjoyed this so much. Let's see if I bring that a little bit closer. You can see all the different patterns. This one was really fun because it's a nice bright pop of color. So there's sleeve 1, there's sleeve 2. Still quite a ways to go on the sleeves, and of course there's all the sweater to go. But this is one of those projects, it gets done when it gets done, but it does feel good to pick it up again. Trying to think if there's anything else to say about it. Oh, I know. I don't love knitting the sleeves on magic loop because I feel like you get, you know, it's not as smooth where the, you know, where the needles join. I know a lot of that will block out once I get them off the needles, but I've been looking at other options, and these are my Chaogu interchangeables. So I've ordered a set of the 4-inch, I'm using a 2.75 for the color work. And so I've ordered the 4-inch tips and a shorter cord to try and do these in the round. I've also ordered a 12-inch, no, I know what I did, sorry. I've ordered the 4-inch 2.75 millimeter tips. And I'll try those on an 8-inch cord. But I've also ordered a 12-inch circular in that size, and I'm gonna see if that'll work. I'm hoping to make the transitions between the beginning and ends of each needle a little bit smoother, a little bit nicer. But having said that, I'm pretty happy with it. I'm also, when I begin and end the colors, for the most part, I am splicing the colors. So something I read about, Uni Zhang used to be the, I think, editor of Interweave. I read something from her one time about doing color work, and she recommended doing that so that you kind of have a, I guess like a, oops. The transitions in your colors can be a little bit fuzzier because you've got one strand of one color and one with the next, so this little area can be less crisp, I guess, but it saves you with having all of those ends. And because this is a non-superwash wool and it's quite sticky, they do stick to each other really well. So it just makes for a nicer looking inside. I'm not going to show you that right now because I do have some ends hanging down. If I have a case like this where I go from a whole line of navy to a whole line of this next beigey color, I do just join in the yarn and weave in the ends as I go. But when I'm doing color work where I'm going from like one blue to another and there's just a few stitches, then I will splice those two yarns together, do a few stitches with a strand of each, and then make that transition. So I am hoping to pick this up again very soon. I do not want to let it languish again. I think I was about there when I picked it up last week, and by the end of the weekend I had finished all of that. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. But I needed yet another project that was not as complicated as that, and yet not as boring as stockinette socks. And this project will need no introduction. I am sure you have all seen it before. Yes, it's time. I'm late to the party, but it is time for me to knit a ranunculus. Now, part of me has been rebelling. I was gonna say, just make a joke. One of the flowers that's in the ranunculus family is buttercups, and I think they look really pretty when they're not in my yard, but buttercups, creeping buttercup is a big problem here as far as weeds go, and so I can't believe I am knitting a sweater that's going to resemble one, but what the heck, I guess you have to make friends with your enemies. Anyway, I am knitting it with this yarn. I am holding two different yarns together. Now, I know a lot of people knit this with a flatter yarn and then a fuzzy yarn like a mohair or a angora or something of that nature, alpaca. Those yarns tend to irritate my skin, and so well, I'm trying this. This is a merino lace weight yarn. You might remember it from the shawl that I knit for my daughter-in-law for her wedding. So I am holding two strands of this lace weight merino, and then this is Quince & Company Chickadee, which is 100% non-superwash wool. What I'm hoping is when it's washed that this might bloom and fuzz up just a little bit. I swatched with the yarn separately and I just thought it seemed really flat, and I really liked the way that this bit of white in it just softened the color a little bit, just made it more interesting. So let's see if I can bring it up where you can see it in the light. There, that's probably the best. So I can see why it's such a popular pattern. It is a lot of fun to knit. I have just completed all the patterning on the yoke, and now it's time to start doing some raglan increases for the sleeves and body. The thing is I do not want, well, here's a picture, a couple of pictures of the sweater for those of you who may have been living under a rock and maybe haven't seen it. Oh, I'll be right back. That was my husband calling to say that he's on his way home from work, so I'm hoping I can get the rest of this episode recorded pretty quickly and without too much difficulty. First, a little sip. So as I mentioned, I am knitting Ranunculus by Midori Hirose. I think that's how you say her name. And here is a photo of how it was knit originally. As you can see, it is quite a light, loose, baggy sweater. And I want something that's closer fitting and in a tighter gauge. So by holding these two yarns together and going down in needle size, I'm achieving a much tighter gauge and should have a more traditional sweater when I'm finished. So I am knitting this on a 5mm needle, and I will use a 4.5mm for the bottom ribbing. I did actually originally start this with a 4.5 millimeter needle. I did an alternating cable cast on. I like that for one by one rib. But as I was trying it on, I was finding it was sitting up a little bit too high and kind of choking me. So even though I think I'd gotten to about here, I ended up taking it all back and I recast on with a 5 millimeter needle. And the pattern does say to use the larger needle, so it was just my own ignoring the pattern, my own fault. But the pattern also has short row shaping for the back neck. It also includes it for the front, and I did do it originally, but the second time around I omitted it, and so this sits down just a little bit lower in front. Actually, I put this onto a 40-inch needle, so I should be able to try this on and give you a sense of how it looks. Keep in mind this is prior to blocking, so if I kind of tuck the needle over my shoulder, you can see how it looks. I think it's very pretty, considering it's, you know, has something to do with buttercups. Yeah, I really like it. So I'm gonna compare this stitch count and row gauge to probably my hero, which is a round yoked sweater in a worsted weight. This is probably a little bit heavier than a worsted weight. I think my gauge is about 17 stitches per inch before blocking, and I didn't block my swatch. I did swatch a few times and then I just took it out and started knitting. So I don't know what it's going to look like after it's blocked. I don't know if that lace will fuzz up a little bit. I'm kind of hoping it does. And I don't know how much the yarn will stretch because it is a non-superwash wool. But I think I'm off to a good start. And everyone talks about how quickly this knits up, and I can see why. And I can also just see why it's such a popular pattern. It's really interesting and fun to knit, and it's just really pretty. So I'll take this off. So the thing is too, once I do separate for the sleeves and body, it's going to be a really quick knit because it'll all just be stockinette. I do not know yet whether I'm going to do a short sleeve version or a 3/4 length version or full sleeve. Part of what will determine that is how much yarn I have. So I had 5 skeins of the Quince & Company Chickadee, and I think that was about 900 and so yards. And I had, I think about 1,000 or so of the lace weight. I put it on in my notebook, but I don't have that information here. So that's what I have been working on, but I've also been anticipating another upcoming mystery shawl knit along, and I'm guessing you can guess which one it is, because I think everyone and their dog is going to be participating in Stephen West's upcoming Twist and Turns mystery shawl. I knit my first mystery shawl. I actually knit my first Stephen West pattern, which was the mystery shawl, last fall, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I decided I'm going to participate again this year. So I wasn't sure what yarn I was going to use. You need 2 full skeins of 2 different colors of fingering weight plus another skein of a 3rd color. And I just didn't have anything in my stash that was going to work, at least not all together. So I was lying in bed, not sleeping, as you do, and thinking slash dreaming about yarn, and I remembered that I had a sweater quantity worth of this Cascade 220 fingering weight. This is color 8400, and I had originally bought it to do a sweater, which I have since frogged. One of the combinations that I really liked when Stephen West was showing off all the different possibilities available at Stephen and Penelope, one I really liked was a dark gray, a light gray, and a red. And so I have ordered, these are 50 gram skeins, and so I have ordered 4 skeins of, I think it's called silver, and 2 skeins of, I think it's called ruby. They are on their way to me, and so I'll have plenty of time before the knit along to get them. And so my shawl is going to be dark gray, light gray, and with a pop of red. So I'm quite excited about that upcoming shawl, and the dates work out really well because as I'll be finishing off my mountain musings, I'll be, you know, then transitioning into the Stephen West one. So excited about that. Are you guys doing the Stephen West mystery shawl this year? If you have, let me know what colors you're using. And have you knit a ranunculus? How did you make out with it? One thing I think I was starting to say before I had the phone ring is because I'm knitting it at a tighter gauge, I'm gonna have to do some math, and as I said, I'm gonna compare it to another yoked sweater I have, my Hero, and just get a sense of stitch numbers and things, because even though they all start out the same, after this point, the stitch numbers start to change depending on your size. I think what put me off so much in the beginning was that the original one, the smallest size, knitting as written, has like just a crazy amount of ease in it, and I just don't like those big baggy sweaters. So by changing up my gauge, I definitely am going to have a more fitted sweater, which is what I want. That is it for all my projects, so let's move on to what's been happening in my life this week. So as I had mentioned last episode, I had plans to spend all day Thursday knitting. It was September 1st, and I had planned to cast on my September Personal Sock Yarn Club socks and also work on Clue 1 of my mystery shawl. And that's exactly what I did. And to make things even better, Cameron ended up working out of town that day and staying overnight. So I had the entire day and evening just to spend how I wanted, not feel like, you know, I had to cook dinner for him or any of those things. So it was quite lovely. And then this weekend, or this last weekend, was Labor Day weekend here in Canada and the US. And that meant Monday was a statutory holiday. So our daughter's family went up to the cabin, all except our oldest granddaughter. She had to be kind of keep that day open in case she had to work. Turned out she didn't have to, and our son-in-law had sort of said, maybe you could, you know, spend some time with her this weekend. She's not really afraid to be alone, but she likes to know there's someone else around. So the only time that worked for us was Saturday, and we decided we would take her out for lunch, and then I mentioned that we needed to bottle wine at 2 o'clock that afternoon, and she said, oh, can I come and help again? She and my daughter-in-law had helped me one time when Cameron was away. So I was like, sure. So as it turned out, Cameron ended up having to work that morning. So she and I went out for lunch, and just as we were going to pay the bill, Cameron showed up at the restaurant. And so he sat down and had lunch too, and then we all went off and bottled wine and then dropped her off back at home. She was having our daughter-in-law and her friend over for dinner that night. So knew she had company all that day, and then she was going to get together with some friends the next day. So she was well covered. So Friday, I did not knit all day. I did a bunch of housework because we had invited some family over for Sunday. So we had invited my 3 sisters that live locally and their husbands to come over for an end of summer kind of happy hour / appy night. And wouldn't you know, it's like the one day that the weather was not like really nice, but it didn't rain hard or anything. There were just a few sprinkles, but we started out out in the open and ended up undercover. But it was, oh, Cameron's home, I can hear him there. But yeah, it was just a really nice evening. We hadn't all seen each other for a while, and just a really nice way to pass Sunday evening. Let me see what else. Oh yeah, the Monday we didn't do anything. We just hung around here at home, had a nice lazy day. No labor involved on Labor Day. And then last night, Cameron and I went over to the curling rink and met up with our 2 new teammates and did some practice. So I'd been really nervous about this. Neither of us have curled in about 2.5 years. I was really worried I was gonna wipe out on the ice, or I wouldn't know what to do. It's surprising though how quickly your muscle memory comes back, and even though I wasn't throwing the rocks as far as I should be and as well, you know, by the end of I think we were there about an hour or so, and by the end of that, you know, starting to get back in the groove, and my last shot was exactly what it was supposed to be, so I kind of ended on a high note. It was nice to meet the 2 members of our team. It turned out I had curled against one of the women before. I think she had spared for one of the teams we used to curl against. And actually, coincidentally, both women are teachers, and she took over when Cameron's brother left his position for medical reasons. She got his job, and she's been doing it ever since. And then the other woman used to work with another of my brothers-in-law, my sister's husband, who's now retired. So, you know, small world, you find these connections all the time. So yeah, I think we'll do okay. Well, I don't know how well we'll curl together, but I think as a team, you know, I think we'll get along well, and I'm definitely looking forward to curling again this year. So that's Monday nights that we curl together, and then I might be curling on a team on Wednesday mornings, but if not, I'm going to spare for that league. They're trying to put together another team, so if they can, I'll curl on Wednesday mornings too. So yeah, definitely enjoying it. I was a little stiff and sore when I got up this morning from all the sweeping and such, but did some stretches and movements and definitely felt better after that. Let's see what else is in my notes here. Cameron is going to be away this upcoming weekend. It's his annual golf trip. The last couple of years they invited the wives along because the numbers were down so much because of COVID, but this year it's back to men only. So he leaves Friday morning, so I'll have a few days here on my own, and once again, probably a lot of it I'm going to spend just knitting away quite happily, guilt-free. And then we will probably be having dinner tomorrow night with our son's girlfriends, well, our son and his girlfriend and his girlfriend's parents. We were supposed to meet both of them back in early July, but then Cameron and I got COVID, And so we met her mom a week or two later, but we haven't met her dad yet. So that's the plan for tomorrow night. So yeah, lots of, just a few things coming up, I guess. Not lots of things, but a few things coming up this week. All right, I think that's it. On to something good. So last Wednesday, I looked after our younger granddaughter, and our daughter mentioned that she had sent along her knitting. So I'm not sure when she first started teaching our granddaughter to knit, but she had some wooden needles and about this much knitting on it. And so after lunch, we sat down and did some knitting together. She did about 3 rows of 10 stitches, and then she'd had enough. And it was funny, we sent a picture to our daughter, and she wrote back something about, you know, she'll have a Barbie blanket in no time. So when I told our granddaughter that, I think she was thinking about how long it would take to knit that Barbie blanket. She's looking at this little bit of knitting on her needles, and she said, or I could take this and I could knit this much again and sew it together for a Barbie pillow. Just thought, you got it. So I don't know if she's knit since, but she certainly was doing a good job. What she was sort of reminded of what to do. So once I say goodbye, right at the end, I'll post a little video clip of her knitting. All right, it is time to go. I doubt this is going to get up until Thursday, but at least it's recorded, and I'll work on editing either later tonight or tomorrow. Yeah, it was kind of a tough one to get going and a tough one to just get through. Sometimes it just isn't comfortable and doesn't flow. So hopefully it's not too bad an episode on the receiving end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a good week ahead. I do plan to record again next week, but I might not. It's just occurring to me that I'm going to be away next Thursday. We are going up just for the day with a couple of my brothers-in-law to close things down at the cabin for the season. So there's a good possibility I won't record next week, but if I don't, I'll record the week after. So take care until then. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Did it.
You did it. Good for you.